welfare, for Shlema, of all the sick people, for our brothers and sisters in Israel. Hopefully, all the captives will get free very soon, and no more, these attacks and terrorism in the world. Amen. What I was going to discuss today blocks me. What am I supposed to do? I don't know. Big problem. Yeah. Anyway, so what we're going to discuss actually is Parshat Noah. This week's Parsha, I think, has a lot of great lessons that we can learn. One of the things definitely is about how to look at other people, how to judge other people. There's a very strange story in this week's Parsha that we're going to discuss. Noah, the flood came, right? The whole world got destroyed. There was only Noah, his wife, and his three sons, and his three daughter-in-laws that God restarted the world, only with 8 people. They can obviously realize that after he had such a beautiful world, and then God destroys it, and then he's in the ark for a full year. When he comes out, he sees the world destroyed. Would you blame him that he's depressed? You wouldn't blame him. So the first thing that Noah does, he plants like a vineyard, and he makes wine, and he gets drunk. So many commentators actually learn the problem that we have today. People that are not happy, so they either go to drugs or they go to alcohol. I don't know if there were drugs those days, but definitely they know about alcohol. So he makes wine and he gets drunk, just to forget. He was very, very depressed at that time. So when he gets and he was actually 601 years old, because he lived for 950 years. So when he goes on hike, he gets drunk, so he goes and gets undressed in his tent. That's what the Torah says. That he got undressed, he went into his tent, and he had 3 sons, Shem, Ham, and Yefet. So the most righteous son was Shem. That's from whom Abraham comes. The second righteous son was Yefet, and then the lowest one was Ham. So when Ham sees what's going on, his old father, 601 years old, he gets undressed. Maybe a young guy would do that, whatever. Guy, 600 years old, come on, you're an old man. What are you doing? So instead of, covering up his father, he goes and tells his other brothers. That's what the Torah says. He went and told his brothers, and he made fun of the father, so to speak. So it's a very strange story. And then the Torah says when that happens, Shem, being the righteous son, the first one, and then Yefet, it says they took like a clothing or blanket or something. And it says when they went into their father's tent, so it says they went backwards because they didn't want to see their father undressed. So it says they came out, it says, and then the Torah repeats again, Vayelchu achoranit. It says a second time they went backwards. And then it says, V'lo erbat avim, they didn't see the bareness, the nakedness of their father. So Rashi, the first commentator, asks, why does it say twice? It says they went in backwards and they walked backwards. Well, if they went in backwards, of course, they walked backwards not to see the father's nakedness. Why the repetition? So Rashi gives an answer. They walked in backwards, right? But when they want to cover their father, they have to turn around. You can't cover your father when your back is to him. So even when they turn to see their father, they turn their face the other way, not to see their father bare. So that's what it says twice. When they walked in backwards. Even when got close to the father, when they had to turn around, they didn't directly look at their father's body. They turned the other way. That's the way Rashi answers it. But the problem that we have here, the Rebbe asked that question, the Pasuk says, "V'lo ra'u ervat avihem." They didn't see the nakedness of their father. Isn't that obvious? If I don't look, I don't see. So Rashi doesn't explain those 3 words. He could have said they walked in backwards, and when they turned around, they turned their face the other way. I would realize myself they didn't see anything. So that's one thing, that Rashi, the basic commentator, doesn't explain. So we're going to discuss that really. What is the Torah teaching us? And I think we could learn a very, very big lesson from this. But before we go further, let's bring down one of the interesting stuff that the Baal Shem Tov says. Please, guys, come in the front. I can't scream. I will you come in the front? Seats in the front are more expensive.
Yeah?
They're more valuable. I don't charge. Anyways, so what we're going to do is there's actually a statement of the Baal Shem Tov, which is a very, very interesting statement, and hopefully we're going to go through it in depth. The Baal Shem Tov says, when we look at another person, it's like we're looking in a mirror, basically. If I see something negative in a person, it's because I have that negative thing within me. That's what the Baal Shem Tov says. And the Baal Shem Tov himself asks, what do you mean? If I see somebody murdering somebody else, that means I have the character trait of murdering? That's not true. If I see somebody else murdering, doesn't mean that I'm a murderer. So it says you're right, but it shows at least in a very refined way I have the same sin. What does that mean? For example, the Gemara says, if I embarrass somebody publicly, is equal to killing him. Right? That's why he gets embarrassed, no? Blood comes to his face, turns white, that's like murdering. Or let's say the Gemara says, if you speak Lashon Hara, when I gossip behind somebody's back and I ruin his life because of my gossip, that's equal to murder. So when I see somebody else doing something bad, stealing or murdering, God is showing me a mirror. And the language of the Baal Shem Tov is like, if I look at the mirror and I see a clean face, that's because my face is clean. If I look in the mirror and I see a dirty face, it's a reflection of my own face because my face is dirty. And why does the Baal Shem Tov say that? Because nothing happens by accident. You know, one of the things that Judaism believes is everything that happens is guided by God. God wants it to happen. And we know actually in this week's parasha we find something that when God tells Noah to bring kosher and non-kosher animals into the ark, right? Non-kosher animals, 2 pairs. 1 pair, I mean, husband and wife, man and woman. And when it comes to kosher animals, 7 pairs. Now, what's a short word for non-kosher animals? What? Taref means that's if you slaughter, then it's not kosher. Tmeya, tame, impure, right? But the Torah doesn't say that. God tells Noah, if the behemoth tehora, pure, take 7 pairs, and the behemoth asher einena tehora, which is not pure. So it could have said tmeya, which is 5 letters, or hatmeya, 5 letters. It says the animal which is not tahor. Why? The Gemara says because God doesn't want to say something even negative about an animal. The word tam is not nice. The equivalent in Persian, najis, you know. I mean, if you're used to it. Do you know what najis is? So unfortunately, what, you know, the uneducated, our brothers in Iran or old Muslims used to call us. Najis means like ritually dirty, unclean. So that's what, tmei is not a nice word. God doesn't want to use that. So it says, asher enena tehora. Animal which is not pure. So if God doesn't want to say something negative about animals, how much more so doesn't want to say negative about people? So why is he showing me the evil of another person? Why is he doing that? So because of that, Baal Shem Tov says, because God wants to show that I have that negative thing in me, in a subtle way maybe. Like if I see a murderer, maybe I've embarrassed somebody in public. Clear? And why does God do it that way? Because a person doesn't see his own faults. Right? You always feel, I'm not so bad, you know, I'm okay. Maybe I don't do this, but I'm okay, there's nothing wrong. Because I cover up, my love covers up my flaws. But somebody else I don't love as much as myself, so I do see his flaws. The moment I see his flaws, so God says, you know what, I hope that I realize that I have that same flaw within me. That's what Baal Shem Tov says. Clear, guys? So when I look at somebody else, I'm looking at a mirror of my own face. I have the same thing. But I have there's a serious question that I ask on the statement of the Baal Shem Tov. You know, as a whatever, you know, being partners with God, you know, Jewish people, we have an obligation not just to perfect ourselves, but we have to make other people good too. So when I see somebody doing something wrong, how does the Baal Shem Tov know? Because God is showing me a mirror, maybe I don't have that fault. Maybe God is showing it to me, so I should teach him not to be bad. Maybe. If I was here only to make myself perfect, right? I have nothing to do with other people. Okay, so why is God showing me something negative about somebody else? To show that I have that negative thing in me. But if my job is besides making myself perfect, I have an obligation to make another person well too. So maybe I see the negative about that person because I have to tell him to become a good person. Is that clear, people? So how do you know that's a mirror? It's not a mirror at all. So we're going to go actually through a very interesting philosophy, and I think it answers a lot of things. You see, the question is, when I see somebody else doing something negative, how do I look at him? How do I judge him? There is one way that what sticks out the most is his negative. What a bad person he is. I don't see so much my obligation to separate him from doing something wrong. But what sticks out by me is the negative that he has. Then there's another way. When I see somebody doing something bad, I don't resent him or I don't judge him that he's evil because he's doing the bad thing. But I see my obligation as a Jew. What can I do to make his life or his whatever outlook in life a lot better? Let's bring a very simple example. You know, they brought it in books for children. Imagine, somebody comes in a synagogue and he's very careless, not careful, and he just knocks the siddur down on the floor. A very simple, child example. So now if I look at him, what a careless person. He doesn't care, just knocks out siddur. Or I have another way to look at it. You know what? The siddur fell on the floor is my job to pick it up. I don't judge that person. Of course, I know it's wrong. But again, his evil doesn't stick out. So that's a question. When I see somebody doing something wrong, how do I look at the situation? Do I see his evil? Not so much my obligation to make him better. If I see the evil, that's what sticks out. So that shows that God is showing me a mirror. I have that negative thing within me. But if I don't judge him, at least that's not the main thing. That's not the main thing. I see my obligation. What can I do to make his situation better? I don't judge him to judge him as an evil person. So then, yes, I don't have that evil within me. So what the Baal Shem Tov says, when I look at another person, right, in that situation, is because God is showing me a mirror. That's only if I really judge him completely negatively. I see the evil within him. So that shows I have that evil in myself, at least in a very subtle way. But if I see my obligation, how to fix the situation, then could be I don't have that evil within me. Is that clear? So now, by the way, they answer another question with that. They say that tzaddikim, real righteous people, they don't see the ra means evil. They don't see evil in somebody else. But if you go to a righteous person, he could see exactly what he did all her life. I'm talking about, people like Moshe Rabbeinu, real tzaddikim. They could look at a person, they see exactly what's going on in his life. So if they see what you did yesterday, how come they don't see the evil? I'm going to actually share a story with you. The story was with Arizal. Arizal was a master of Kabbalah. He would look at a person and actually say what he did from the first day of his life. So this story is, I don't know if it's that famous, but there's a story with Arizal. There was a guy in Turkey. It was a real, but a tyrant. He would always demand to get a blessing of the Torah. He wasn't such a nice guy. So then there was someone actually that came from Israel, from Tzfat, where the Arizal lived. And he comes in the synagogue and he says, you know what? I saw this man, the Arizal. His name was Rabbi Yitzchak Luria. They call him the Arizal. Ari means Adonenu Rabbi Yitzchak, our master Rabbi Yitzchak. If he looks at you, he could tell you what he did yesterday. So this man that was a big tyrant says, come on. I don't even know what I did yesterday myself. He's going to tell me what I did. So he says, yeah, you got to go to Israel and see. So he decides to travel to Israel from Turkey. Not such an easy trip. He was a rich guy, very tyrant. So when he gets to Israel, at that time, before he gets to Israel, Arizal was actually teaching his students. In the middle of his teaching, he starts laughing. So the student, what's so funny? He says, well, there is a man that's coming to visit me soon. He was telling his students that he was sitting somewhere drinking some wine. And he was saying, L'chaim, I'm going to prove Arizal is wrong. So he laughed and he gave exactly what it looks like. He says, when he comes, please bring me to your office, to my office. Anyway, so when he came to Israel, he comes to looking for the Arizal and they show where his house is. The students recognize him based on the definition that Arizal gave. And then when he comes in, he really feels a little bit different. So Arizal says, what do you want? He says, I heard that you could tell me what I did all my life. So he actually tells him. And then he became a very, very humble person. So the reason why I said this story, there are tzaddikim that you could look at a person and see exactly what they did. So how could the Medrash say that tzaddikim don't see evil in a person? They could see exactly what you did. They don't look at it as an evil thing. If they know that I did something wrong, they see their obligation. What can they do to make this person better? But they don't judge him that he's an evil man. So it's not a contradiction. They could know exactly what I did, but they don't look at it as an evil thing. So now we can understand the story with Noah. Let's go back. The question that we had, the Torah says again, Noah, after he was depressed when he comes out of the ark, because the world was destroyed. He gets drunk and he goes into his tent and he gets undressed. So his youngest son, Cham, comes and sees his father undressed at an old age, 601 years old. He makes fun of his dad. He goes outside of the tent and he tells his other two brothers, maybe the other sister-in-laws, his wife, the other sister-in-laws, making fun of their old man. So the Torah says the other two boys, they went in backwards. And then it says they walked backwards. And Rashi says, and then it says also, they didn't see the father's nakedness. So Rashi explains they walked in backwards. Even when they got close to the father and that to turn around to cover him, they looked the other way. Right? They didn't want to look at their father. So Rashi says, well, it says twice they walked backwards, but then it says they didn't see their father's nakedness. Isn't that obvious? If I don't look at my father's body, so I don't see the nakedness. Why is the Torah repeating that? So based on this, the Rebbe explains, they don't mean the physical nakedness. We're talking about judging him that look what a low person he is. 600 years old plus one. He gets drunk and gets naked. Well, you're 18 years old? No, that you have like hot blood or something? What's going on over here? So that's what the Torah says. Of course, it's not talking about seeing him physically naked. What it means is they didn't judge. They didn't look at it as a negative thing. Not only they didn't physically see, but they didn't see the nakedness, the negative thing in their father. They only saw their obligation, that their obligation is to cover him up. They didn't see something negative. It's a very, very deep lesson that the Torah is teaching us. Go ahead. Don't ask me hard questions.
No, it's not a question. Outside of the lady that wanted to leave, but she said she was being blocked by a white Kia. She wanted me to ask if anyone has a white Kia to move their car.
Anybody has a white Kia? You know, I joke about Kia cars. You speak Persian?
Yeah.
So I say Kias don't have their identity. Kia means who's this? So they're looking for anybody has a Kia. Could be from the restaurant.
Yeah. So I
Like it's not from us. They also say about Ferrari, they're runaways, fugitives. Ferrari, you know. So Kia and Ferrari, remember those two cars? Anyways, I heard that from one of my friends many years ago. Anyways, you know, the lesson that we learn from this, you know, honestly, this world is a very judgmental world, unfortunately. And thank God, you know, we are the light to the world. We're supposed to be light to the world. And honestly, one person could make a very, very big difference. One thing, you know, if people do wrong things, you have an obligation to try to fix them. But let's not judge them as an evil person. You know, so unless, you know, they're like so corrupt, you know, whatever, you got to get rid of it. But usually, I'm saying most of our brothers and sisters, they're good people. Most of the time, they do something bad because they don't know the importance of it. But even if they're bad, again, my job has to be, what can I do to fix the situation? If I can't fix the situation, then whatever. You know, when it comes to terrorists, have you seen even our soldiers? They don't really feel good getting rid of terrorists. They do because they have to. And the proof is when they go to the war, they only kill the bad people. They don't go after their wives or children. They always say it's unfortunate because we have to save other people's lives, so we got to do this. But that's one lesson that we know from Noah's children. That's number one that we studied tonight, Bezat Hashem. Let me go towards another thing. Is also nothing, you know, a lot of us are leaders. All of us definitely will be leaders in our homes. You're going to be a leader. Father has to be a leader. You guys are going to be the mothers. You're going to be leaders. And some of you actually might be even bigger leaders than just being leaders in the family. Really, who knows? Honest to God. You know, supposedly I'm supposed to be a leader in the community too. But again, some of you guys might become CEOs of companies and you have to teach, you know, morality to the people that work for you. We are all examples on leaders. So we're going to actually discuss something that the Zohar says, very interesting point, comparing three leaders to each other. They lived in three different generations, and their generations were corrupt to a certain extent. And the Zohar compares exactly how these people were. The first one is Noah, this week's Parsha. Right? You know, the story of Noah, he was the only righteous person in that generation. That's a big deal. Everybody got destroyed, that means everybody was corrupt. One single guy didn't join them. This takes, you know, tremendous amount of courage not to be influenced by everybody. You know, today in this world, we have many good people. We have some bad people. So if let's say there are bad people around me, I have a choice to go to good people. Noah had nobody good around him. Everybody was evil. So to keep himself righteous, his wife and his kids, it's really a big deal. So anyways, God comes to Noah and he says, you know what, I don't like these people, whatever, they have to get destroyed. I can't keep them anymore. I'm giving them 120 years. I wanted to go build an ark. It took him close to 120 years to build it. It's a whole lifetime. And now why did God tell him to make an ark that it took him 120 years? He had to go plant trees and he had to wait many years till the trees grow and cut the wood, make the ark. So why did he do it in that way? Rashi says, couldn't God save him a different way? You're talking about with God. God could do supernatural stuff. So Rashi says the reason was because God wanted people to see Noah doing this strange thing. Why are you wasting your time building an ark? So would say, well, you know what? God spoke to me, told me in 120 years, he's going to bring a flood if you don't repent. hopefully they will repent, which was not successful. So then the Torah tells that there's actually the Mefarshim, they explain Noah did not pray for his generation. He didn't tell God, come on, have mercy on them. He accepted God's judgment that have to get destroyed. And with that, actually, the Medrash, the Zohar explains that God promised never to bring the flood anymore, correct? There's not going to be a flood covering the entire earth. There might be tsunamis that cover certain parts of the earth, but it has happened. I remember I was in Sri Lanka, 2004, 2005. I don't know, over 150,000 people died. The reason why I remember because I had a girl from Sri Lanka in El Camino Real. So when the tsunami happened, she had relatives that passed away, unfortunately. That's what I remember. Otherwise, I don't think there are Jews in Sri Lanka. I mean, if there are, there may be one or two. Oh, she wasn't Jewish. She came to the Jewish club, but she wasn't Jewish. No. She came to the Jewish club. You don't have to be Jewish to go to a Jewish club. You don't have to be Jewish to eat kosher food. But if you're a Jew, you have to eat kosher food. Remember that. At any rate, okay, so God promised not to bring the flood anymore. So in book of Isaiah, Yeshayahu, God says, I promise not to bring May Noach, the flood of Noach, in the world anymore. Why is this flood called flood of Noach? It didn't come because of Noach. He was the only one that got saved. He came because of the people in his generation. So the Zohar says God blames Noach for it because he didn't pray for his generation. So that's one thing that we learn is if there's supposed to be a tragedy coming, now we're not all exactly righteous people, but again, mistake of Noach was that he didn't pray for them. So the Torah says he wasn't the greatest leader. He was a righteous person. Again, we're not putting him down, God forbid. He was a man that lived in a full corrupt generation, but he was able to keep himself and his family righteous, but he didn't pray for his generation. Now the Zohar goes ahead. Let's talk about Abraham, Abraham, our father. So in his time, the city of Sodom, right, was a very, very wicked city. They didn't accept any guests. They were really, really wicked. You talk about ISIS. So they had a rule that any poor man that comes to this city, you can't feed him or feed her. Why? Because they said we don't have homeless around here. Only, people that have money that could join our city. That's why Lot, nephew of Avram, was accepted because he came with a lot of money. So they had a rule: any poor people that come to the city, don't feed them. So they see there's no food, they go somewhere else. Now the Medrash says Lot, Avram's nephew, had a daughter that she was actually very, very, what do you call it? She was very, very caring. She sees this poor woman or poor man sitting there. So she used to go every day with a pitcher to draw water. She would put like a bread, under her sleeve or something and just drop it in front of the poor man. Nobody saw, so everything was fine. But then people started becoming curious. There's already a week that this poor man or this poor woman is sitting here. If nobody's giving him or her bread, why is he sitting here? Should have been dead by now. So they investigate, and somebody goes, hide someone, and they say, oh my gosh, this girl is dropping a loaf of bread. So how did they punish her? They made her undressed, and they put a lot of honey on her body, and they allowed a bunch of bees, and they beat her to death. That's how bad the city of Sodom was. Like semi-ISIS, looks like. They tortured her to death. So God tells Abraham, you know what? These people are so cruel. City of Sodom has to be overturned. So Abraham prays. He says, no, God, you know what? There were like 5 cities that God wanted to overturn. And he says, you know what? Maybe there is 50 righteous people in these cities. So there is a minion for every city. So how could you kill righteous and wicked together? For the sake of the 10 people, all 5 cities should be saved. So God says, okay, there's no 50 righteous people. So Abraham says, maybe there is 40, maybe there is 30, maybe there is 10. At least one city should be saved. But there was not even 10 people that were righteous. So then God overturns 4 of the 5 cities. One of them didn't get overturned because Lot ran away there. His nephew, Abraham's nephew. So we see over here that Abraham at least tried and he prayed for people that not to get killed. But the Zohar says he only prayed for the righteous. He said, for the sake of the righteous, save everybody. When God said there is not a single righteous person there, he didn't care to pray. If they're all wicked, let them die. Then the Zohar continues and he talks about Moshe Rabbeinu, Moses, our teacher. Moshe Rabbeinu, he also had a generation that they did, pretty whatever. I mean, we are not there to judge. We didn't live in that generation. But could you imagine the whole generation sees God on Mount Sinai? God speaks to them. It was a tremendous experience that none of us have. You see God's glory on the mountain, and you hear the Ten Commandments. It's pretty scary, right? You would never want to do a sin. But then 40 days later, when Moses comes one day late, they make the golden calf. So the Jews did this, committed the sin of idolatry, idol worship. So God tells Moshe, I'm going to destroy them all. And then I think I spoke about it right before Simchat Torah. Not only Moshe prays for them, but he actually breaks the tablets, which that was our marriage contract. We promised God in those 10 commandments, you're our God, no more idols. So he actually breaks it, and he tells God, the Jews never got married to you. There's no obligation because I broke the tablets. So whether the Zohar says we see Moshe prayed actually even for Jews, that they fell so low to the sin of idol worship. I don't think any of us do that today. Maybe we have idol worship in India. They worship cows. But I mean, most of the world, they believe in one God. Nevertheless, he prayed for them. So the Zohar says, comparing these three, Noah that didn't pray for anybody, Abraham that only prayed for the righteous, that for the sake of the righteous, the city should get saved. And then Moshe Rabbeinu that even prayed for the wicked people that were not 100% okay. That's a real leader. You see, guys, when somebody does something wrong, we have two choices. What's our nature right away? Some bad word. Say drop dead, God forbid. Shouldn't say these words. So we have two choices. If he did something wrong, should I pray that it should change to the good, or should I say something bad, curse him? So you see, the advantage of Moshe was that even for people that did the sin, he prayed for them. And I'm telling you, Moshe was in a very, very bad situation. He fasted to go up to the mountain to receive the tablets. It was very dear to him. And then he broke it to save the Jews that worship idols. That's a great sacrifice. He wants to learn Torah. Or is making commentaries. Just kidding. Anyways, so this is what the Zohar teaches us as a leader. Bezrat Hashem, many of you guys will become leaders. Our job is to pray for the welfare of everybody, not, God forbid, want the evil that they do. Anyways, guys, we have a few more minutes to go. If you have any questions, before I go ahead. Not hard one.
No, it's more like a morality question. So in my school, there's very not smart people that don't like to educate themselves. So they like to make a lot of comments about the war during class. So what is the
what do they say? They say Israel is aggressive.
How do you ask? So because you work for the UC system, that means you support the genocide of the Palestinian people.
No.
That's my professor today. Yeah, that's what they said. Where did you?
Well, you see, if you have, you can't fight with them. You know what I'm saying? But the best, you see what you see it on the news.
Our goal is not to our. Come on, okay. Anyways.
Okay, so what did I? You see,
you want to give them a dirty look. You want to
no. The right thing is, get educated. Concept of, if you're there, you want piece of land. Why do you go chop off the head of little kids?
But is it better to say something and
Again, it depends on the situation. If it's somebody that wants to get the news, wants to get educated, right? So you tell him. Israel is trying to do the hardest thing, is telling the people to leave your houses because you want to destroy the tunnels. And then Hamas doesn't let those people leave. They are the terrorists. They're making human shields. Israelis don't. When they go into Gaza, they try very hard. That's what I'm saying. If there are people that are looking for the truth, then you should. If it's like, a guy that doesn't care, he's just there to put you down, so, just go educate yourself. I don't want to discuss it. Goodbye. But, there are some people that really want to get educated, just don't know better. You know, one of the things that happened, there was actually a woman from Minnesota that was very pro-Palestinian. She was in that festival, and she's one of the women that got killed in Israel.
What did you get?
Oh, she went to the.
She went to, and again, when the Hamas attacked, she was killed. That's what I saw in the news. Anyways, people,
What did it say? Hamas in this week's Parshat? I saw it online.
yeah, people want to connect. You see, let me just,
Does it mean anything?
I'll tell you guys. Can I please have your hello, guys? Can I have your attention for a second? In the back,
I'm sorry, I'm back.
our tzaddikim in the back. Yeah, they asked the question. The word Hamas is in this week's parsha. You see, simply learning the Torah, Hamas over them means violence, and Rashi says it means stealing. But obviously, everything in the Torah has, besides a simple meaning, has also a deep meaning. Again, I didn't hear it from like big tzaddikim. If the Lubavitch Rebbe would have said it, I would say 100% it's true. These are the regular rabbis that are explaining it. Again, it makes sense. I hope it comes out to be true. It says God wanted to destroy the world because it's full of Hamas. Hamas means violence. But this group of terrorists, they call themselves Hamas too. Now, the funny thing is that, or the interesting thing is that, the translation into Aramaic, which is Unclus, he translates Hamas, Chabalin, which means also to Chabalin means like you cause damage, like bodily damage, besides violence, right? And then also it says that it says when it says the whole earth is full of Hamas, they use the word chatofin. Chatofin, besides violence, also means grabbing people. So the one who say this is hinting to the situation now. And what does it say at the end of it? God says, I'm going to erase them from earth. So this is what they're saying. I hope, listen, the evil has to be erased. Either evil has to turn into good or it has to be erased. I want to know I'm not usually a political person, but I'll tell you one thing. We have seen in our history that if something evil happens and we don't take care of it, the evil is going to come to bite us. Let's start from America, right? In the beginning, when the problem of drugs started, who used to take drugs? People, downtown, I don't know, Watts or something, people that were not happy at all. So that to go take drugs to become happy. They didn't care to fight it. Now we have our best of the kids in Encino, Tarzana, Beverly Hills. They're plagued with drugs. In the beginning, they thought nothing is going to happen to us. We don't take care of it, it's going to hit us at home. You were talking about once upon a time, terrorism was only an Israeli problem. Correct? That's what it was, big deal. Let Israel deal with it. So what happened? When Osama bin Laden attacked America, right? No, was it in 2001, 2002, whatever, whenever that happened? So then President Bush woke up. We think Bush is our best friend. I mean, he's a friend of Israel, but I'll never forget in the beginning when Ariel Sharon, in Israel, there was a graveyard that Palestinians to go in the back and just sniper Jews. So Ariel Sharon emptied the place. He took all the Arabs out and he flattened that grove. I never forget Bush stood up and he said it was aggressive. Now it's okay. As soon as 9/11 happened, then Bush said Israel has the right to defend herself. I never forget. He suddenly flipped. During World War II, right? When they were killing the Jews in Europe, America didn't care. They were the superpower. They had the morality to go save the world. They didn't do it. So what happened? Then the Japanese came in Pearl Harbor. So again, also, even the Arab countries, that they didn't care about the fact what's happening in Israel. When the Arab Spring happened, what was going on? A Muslim killing another Muslim, Syrians killing Syrians. They realize if you let terrorism grow, it's going to bite you at your own house. They don't care if you're Jewish, you're not Jewish. They have a certain idea. You oppose that, I'm going to kill you till I get to my idea. So this is one thing that we have, and I think America's a hope. I don't know. They're learning it now. They're giving open hands to Israel. I mean, before they would tell them, I don't know if they're giving, again, at least America is doing it. Some, major countries, they see. Now they're thinking about our borders that are open. If a couple of terrorists come in, who knows in 10 years what's going to happen, in 5 years. So again, one thing we learn, guys, if there is evil, our job is to fix it. Each one of us in our own capacity. Otherwise, it's going to bite us one day at home. Anyways, thank you for listening, everyone. I just had for people that you go to Pierce College. Anybody's in Pierce College here?
Yeah.
No? Anybody stand up? You go to Pierce. You see David Kashani up there?